Animals often have an incredible sense of recognizing whom they can trust. This dying tiger cried out for help, and what happened next is unimaginable. Everything felt very calm and quiet as Luca lived in an area that was often cut off from the rest of the world. Suddenly he heard a muffled thud at his door. He wanted to check, but he lived in a wild area and had to be cautious since encounters with both animals and humans could be dangerous when one is alone. He fetched his air rifle and opened the door slightly. The weapon wasn't lethal, but hopefully the sound would deter anyone with malicious intentions. As he opened the door, he heard a faint growl. He recognized the sound. It was a tiger, and it seemed like a very large tiger. Quickly, he retreated, but when he looked out of the window, he saw the poor tiger lying on the cold ground. It could barely stand, its head barely lifted, and it groaned in pain. Though the tiger was very close to the house, Luca couldn't see any obvious signs of trauma. Something was definitely not right. The tiger was massive, but it was very weak and clearly suffering. Luca couldn't just watch the animal endure such pain. He hurriedly tried calling a series of rescue centers, but most of them couldn't come to his farm that quickly. Finally, one rescue center agreed to come, but it would take more than an hour. Luca was torn. The tiger needed urgent help, but he was aware that a full-grown tiger could easily tear him apart. The paws looked enormous, and the jaw was frightening to behold. However much he wanted to help the poor animal, he dared not go outside to check on it. Who knew how the tiger would react to Luca's presence? The only thing he could do was wait. It was the longest hour of his life. The waiting tormented him because the tiger was so close to the house. He tried opening the window and tossing out some small pieces of meat, but the tiger ignored them completely. It seemed uninterested in eating anything. Luca tried with a bottle, pouring some water out of the window, creating a small puddle next to the tiger. The tiger lifted its head and took a sip, but then its head dropped back to the ground with a heavy thud. The simple act of drinking seemed to have drained all its remaining energy. It was heartbreaking to see this majestic creature suffer. Luca couldn't get close enough to examine the tiger properly, but he could see the massive creature trembling. Finally, he heard a car coming down the driveway, and Luca breathed a sigh of relief. But the tiger wasn't as pleased with the newcomers. The tiger tried to get up, but it kept falling back down. Having more people around made it panic because in general an injured animal can be even more dangerous. However, in this case the tiger was so weak that it couldn't put up a fight. Although he was afraid of the others, Luca spoke softly to the tiger through the window, and it seemed to calm the tiger down. Eventually, one of the workers from the rescue station tranquilized the tiger, and it fell asleep immediately. Now they could examine it. Luca went outside to see what was going on. Luca got a massive shock. The tiger had a large scar on its leg. For the first time, he understood why the tiger had come to him. It turned out that they had met before. Luca had called the tiger Cheetah back then. It all started about 3 years ago. Back then, Luca still had his older family dog whom he loved. When he let the dog out, she growled at something and ran into the forest. Luca was worried about her and followed to make sure she was okay. The dog had run much farther than he expected. She barked at something on the ground. In the past, she used to catch snakes, but now she was too slow, and Luca was concerned that she might still try to take the risk. So he hurried closer to save his dog. Then suddenly he saw a young tiger trapped in a snare. Luca had never set bear traps on his land. Someone else must have placed them there. The young tiger was severely injured by the trap. Its leg had a big wound where it got caught, and there was no sign of the mother nearby. He carefully took the young tiger out of the trap and wrapped it in his jacket. There was blood everywhere, and Luca wasn't sure if he could save the little tiger cub. It seemed as if the tiger mother had realized her baby was too badly hurt. She probably moved on to protect her other cubs. Luca named the cub Cheetah and took care of him. The veterinarian from the rescue station gave him some tips on how to care for and feed the cub, as well as a list of medications the little tiger could take. Luca had prepared supplies for the winter and was ready to take care of the injured cub. But success was uncertain. The tiger was seriously injured, and every hour he survived was a surprise to Luca. He cleaned and stitched the wound for a few days because there was an infection. During the first few days, the cub just lay there, allowing Luca to do whatever was necessary. But as the tiger grew stronger, he became less cooperative and showed his displeasure by biting and scratching. It was somehow adorable to see the cub becoming stronger and more feisty. When spring came, the cub had grown bigger. His wound had healed, but an ugly scar remained. Cheetah was now completely healthy and could move freely. He had become independent and no longer needed Luca's help. Luca missed the tiger, but he was happy that Cheetah could live the life he deserved out in the wilderness. 2 years had passed since he last saw the big tiger, and Luca worried that something might have happened to him. Since then, things have changed. Luca had lost his dog due to old age and was still too sad to get a new puppy. He had decided to get a new companion after the winter. When Cato came back into his life, Lucas's concern grew as he saw that the tiger was in bad shape. It was the same tiger he had helped years ago. The rescue team examined him, and their faces were filled with concern when they realized that the tiger's teeth were infected. It seemed that Cato must have gotten into a fight with another animal defending its territory. The cause of the bacterial infection appeared to have been left untreated for a long time. The situation was urgent, and they needed to figure out how to treat the infection. They knew they had to act quickly to save him from the worst. It was a race against time, and they were determined to win and save his life. Usually the shelter would just give an animal an antibiotic injection and it would be done, but this infection was too severe to be treated with a simple shot. Cato had to receive medication for a few days, and they had to help him get stronger. So they decided to take Cato to the rescue station to assist him. Luca was relieved that the tiger would receive help, but he was also a little sad that he wouldn't be the one helping the tiger this time. Instead, others would take care of him. When they picked him up, he suddenly started moving again, opened his eyes, and growled softly. All the rescuers quickly moved away from the tiger. It seemed they hadn't given him enough sedatives to put him to sleep. Therefore, they had to tranquilize Cato again. When they tried to load Cato onto a truck, it wasn't easy as he was very heavy. Normally, they would have used a special crane, but they didn't have one available in this case. Instead, they set up a system of ropes to get the tiger onto the truck. Finally, they loaded him, and the team drove away from the farm. It was a really strange feeling for Luca, who felt responsible for Cato. He just hoped that the tiger would make it to the rescue center the next day. Arriving there, Luca inquired about Cato's condition. They had drained an abscess in the tiger's mouth and given him plenty of fluids and softer food to strengthen him. Cato started eating again, and it seemed like he was doing better. Luca was so happy to hear that. But after just one day, Luca received a disturbing message. Cato had escaped from the sanctuary. Luca couldn't believe it and learned that the tiger was still in a small enclosure on the premises. He had grown stronger, but it was evident that he was no longer as tame as before. One of the volunteers from the rescue station, a student, attempted to approach Cato, although students usually didn't interact with large predators. But for some reason, he opened the gate and got closer to Cato's head. A big mistake. Cato didn't know the boy and growled at him. The student got so scared that he ran out of the enclosure without closing the gate. The tiger could then simply escape. Now, Cato was out in the wilderness, miles away from the safety of his territory. The urgency increased because he needed help urgently. The news of his escape spread, and a sense of concern hung in the air. The rescue team was on high alert and aware of the risks. They combed the surrounding areas, set traps, and utilized trackers to find Cato's tracks. The days turned into nerve-wracking weeks as they tirelessly searched the land hoping for a breakthrough. Time was of the essence as every minute posed the risk of Cato succumbing to his untreated infection. Finally, a farmer on the outskirts of the town reported sighting Cato near his property. The team navigated carefully through the unfamiliar terrain and quickly headed to the scene. Equipped with tranquilizers and a carefully crafted plan, they proceeded cautiously, ensuring both the tiger's safety and the community's well-being. Their hearts raced as they approached Cato, knowing that any sudden movement could trigger a potentially dangerous encounter. But luck was on their side. The tranquilizers took effect, and Cato fell into a deep slumber. The team secured the majestic creature and brought him back to the rescue station, where they were warmly welcomed by the staff, ready to nurse Cato back to health. The tiger was immediately placed in a secure and spacious enclosure equipped with all the necessary medical facilities. In the following weeks, thanks to the dedicated veterinarians and caregivers, Cato made steady progress. His infection was treated and his strength gradually returned. Finally, the day came when Cato was deemed healthy and strong enough to be released. The rescue station team carefully chose a suitable location, a vast wilderness teeming with life, where he could reclaim his rightful place in the natural world. As Cato disappeared into the wild, his massive silhouette blending with the untouched landscape, the rescue team felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They knew they had played a crucial role in giving this extraordinary tiger a second chance. Luca, the man who had saved Cato many years ago, stood among the rescue station staff, witnessing the majestic tiger return to the wilderness. Although their paths had diverged, Luca's influence on Cato's life was undeniable. The story of Cato spread far and wide, capturing the hearts of people all over the world.